So last week, Breitbart.com published an article claiming that global warming was nothing but a scare and global temperatures were actually falling. Problem is, they used a completely unrelated video about La Nina with my face in it to attempt to back their point. Now, what's worse is that the U.S. Committee on Space, Science and Technology actually tweeted it out. Here's the thing. Science doesn't care about your opinion. Cherry picking and twisting the facts will not change the future, nor the fact, note fact, not opinion, that the Earth is warming. So let's break it down. Their first claim is that global land temperatures have plummeted by 1 degree Celsius since the middle of this year, the biggest and steepest fall on record. Now, that was based on one satellite estimate of global land temperatures, not a consensus. And second of all, land temperatures aren't an appropriate measure. The Earth is 70% water, and water is where we store most of our heat energy. So when you look at sea surface temperatures and you combine that with land temperatures, you actually get a record high for November of 2016. Their second claim, it can be argued that without El Nino, 2014 to 2016 would not have been record warm years. Now, you're taking a look at the Arctic sea ice melting here in this video from NASA. When you actually normalize the data, aka take out the El Nino spike in temperatures,
Arctic temperatures, they've collapsed in the last 3 years, more than 2.5 degrees down. So we've already started the next dive into the Little Ice Age, which is coming.
...2015 and 2016 still come in as the warmest years on record. So that brings me to claim number 3. Many think that 2017 will be cooler than previous years. Now, it is typical, yes, for temperatures to drop in a post-El Nino environment, but certainly not to record lows. If that claim was correct, we would have had global record lows all over the last century, and we haven't seen that since 1911.
In 1900, after the Belgica expedition, it was clear that Roald Amundsen's next goal would be the Northwest Passage. After obtaining his master's license, he traveled to Germany to seek out the leading authority on magnetic research, George von Neumayer. He agreed to teach Amundsen the necessary science and to make sure that he would have the best scientific equipment for magnetic research with him on the voyage. Amundsen then went to Tromsø in 1901 to purchase the Gjøa. During the next 2 years, he prepared for the expedition and restored, strengthened and equipped the Gjøa. On the rainy June 16, 1903, Gjøa and a small, tightly knit crew slipped out of Christiania and headed for the North Sea. After 2 stops on the west coast of Greenland, at Godhavn for dogs and clothing the Inuit made for them, and at Dalrymple Rock to pick up a pre-arranged depot of supplies, the Gjøa was sailed into Lancaster Sound and on August 22nd reached Beechey Island, the last safe winter harbour of the Franklin expedition. From Beechey Island, they sailed down Peel Sound into Simpson Strait. The strait was free of ice westwards, and he could have continued through the Northwest Passage in only 1 season. Instead, Amundsen was looking for a good wintering place where he had already decided to stay for 2 years. On August 13, 1905, they began the difficult navigation of Simpson Strait. With one man in the crow's nest and another constantly at the lead, you are steered through a succession of narrow passages, shoals and ice. On August the 17th, Amundsen and his crew had taken Gjøa through the unsolved link of the Northwest Passage, the part which had never been traversed by a ship. A few days later, a vessel came in sight. The Northwest Passage was done, Roald Amundsen wrote, my boyhood dream. At that moment, it was accomplished. Gjøa got underway on the last stage of the voyage. On August the 30th, as they entered the Bering Strait, the men gathered on deck and drank a toast to the final accomplishment of the Northwest Passage by ship.
The last time we fell below the 20th century average was in 1976, and guess what? That was directly following the 1974-1975 strong El Nino. So next time you're thinking about publishing a cherry-picked article, try consulting a scientist first. And to all my fellow scientists out there, let's make the facts louder than the opinions.
This winter has gone down hard on New Yorkers with a lot of snow, several snowstorms, and strong sub-zero temperatures. But this is something not completely unexpected. After all, it's winter. But when it comes to climate models, things are not always the way we thought they could be. Now, a new study by Chinese scientists suggested something people would never think would happen. For decades, people thought that the ice of the South Pole would shrink, the Antarctic would shrink, and the Chinese scientists are actually suggesting that over the years, since 1979 to 2005, ice of the South Pole has been growing. In fact, their study was finished in 2005, but if it lasted until nowadays, they would know that last year, the ice of the Antarctic has reached a record-setting 7.72 million square feet. NASA acknowledged these changes, saying that indeed the ice of the Antarctic was growing over these years, but they still said that the effect of this ice growing was nullified by the rapidly melting ice of the North Pole of the Arctic. So the global climate change effect was still in full swing. Now, these Chinese scientists have faced criticism for their research, suggesting that they had a go at something untouchable, the issue of climate change. But if you look at it, they were in fact suggesting the same thing, that climate indeed was changing, only in the wrong direction. And there were those defending their research, saying that in fact in the subject as sensitive as climate, which had only been researched for less than 100 years, all opinions would in fact matter. Alexei Rashevsky, RT, reporting from New York City.
I had a meeting beforehand with Ivanka Trump. The bulk of the time was with President-elect Donald Trump. I found it an extremely interesting conversation and to be continued. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And my own concern about it led me to this meeting today. I was very grateful to be asked to come by. I'm here for this 24 hours. I can see 30 Rock where you're sitting right now, just across the river from Liberty State Park.
I'm here to educate you about the single biggest threat to our planet. You see, there is something out there which threatens our very existence and may be the end to the human race as we know it.
What do you mean? The cave-in is over.
I'm afraid you have a much bigger problem than a cave-in.
What's that?
It is a creature which roams the earth alone. It is half man, half bear, and half pig. Well, I'm here to tell you now, man-bear-pig is very real, and he most certainly exists.
No, I think the momentum is unstoppable now. We're winning this. We're going to win it. There is a serious question as to how fast we will win it. And that's crucial because we're adding another 110 million tons today of man-made global warming pollution, and it's building up, and I won't give you the parade of horribles, you know them very well, but it's a very serious threat to the future of our civilization. That sounds apocalyptic, and some people kind of push it away and say, I don't want to think about that. But we have an obligation to our kids, our grandkids, ourselves.
I'm talking, of course, about man-bear pig. Damn you, man-bear pig, they're just children! Oh my God! Man-bear pig screen active. I've got you now, you son of a bitch! I'm serial. I'm super serial. Why won't anybody listen to me? This is like Man-bear pig central. Al Gore. Does he have large hooves where his feet should be?
Oh, hello. Absolutely, amazingly well, actually. Morale is remarkably high. We had a great Christmas. We've just been unfortunate, incredibly unfortunate. We're deeply frustrated not getting out to the open ocean. We were down here following in the footsteps of one of the great explorers and scientists, Douglas Mawson, on his Australasian Antarctic expedition, looking at how much change has been in this environment in the last 100 years. And we had a fantastic day on the 23rd, working on the Antarctic continent. The ship was heading north. We were aiming to get out. The satellite data had been great the day before. But just as we were coming back to the ship, the conditions are closing in. We moved as quickly as we could, but the ship just couldn't get through. And Christmas morning, we had to put the alert out saying, please, someone help us break out.
Right, now we'll look at this expedition to Antarctica. You couldn't really make this stuff up. It's about a bungled propaganda expedition which is now stuck in ice in Antarctica as we speak. They've been stuck there for a week. This expedition has been led by UNSW climate scientist, professor of climate science at the UNSW, Chris Turney. Is stuck there with all his eco-alarmist mates and activists, media and so on, in non-existent sea ice. What he's trying to do is research Antarctica to see what effect global warming is having, and is comparing that to Mawson's trip to the Antarctic, to the same area, to Commonwealth Bay in 1912, just over 100 years ago. And we can see what the difference is. That is that there's a hell of a lot more ice now than there was in 1912. Here's a picture of, here's a film of Commonwealth Bay taken by Mawson in 1912. You can see that Commonwealth Bay is completely ice-free, sea ice-free at that time. They've been stuck there since Christmas Eve, and a Chinese icebreaker was sent to rescue them. Couldn't get through, in fact got stuck itself, and it called for help. Then the Australian icebreaker Aurora Australis was sent down to try to rescue all of them, and it's had to abandon its rescue attempts in 4-metre thick ice. I don't think they'll be going anywhere anytime soon. Now, this expedition was really to assess the ongoing impacts of global warming in the Antarctic region, and as we can see, what the ongoing impact is that there's a hell of a lot more ice than there used to be. But this hasn't been reported, of course. The trip was a propaganda exercise financed by the BBC, Australia's ABC, and also independent eco-alarmists and other media interests such as The Guardian. They've said that they're down in Antarctica, but they haven't mentioned that they're stuck in the sea ice. But this is a message from Professor Chris Turney, UNSW's Professor of Climate Change, who was on the ship. He said, I quote, "We're stuck in our own experiment. Sea ice is disappearing due to climate change, but here the ice is building up," unquote.
About -30, I think, wind chill. The mountain is just appearing. It's been pretty much a whiteout here most of the day, but they're starting to show through now, which is nice. And we've got 8 containers making up the camp this year. It's really quite deceptive. At times it opens up, like you can see here in the wind shadow of the container, and you can see for kilometres, and a couple of minutes later you'll be lucky to see 5 metres ahead of you. We're about 25k away from Scott Base. Pretty miserable conditions at the moment, but fortunately we're all set up at camp, so we can actually just get on with the work inside out of this.